This is the British Broadcorp Incarceration. And now, for the young in heart and weak in the head, it's Round the Archives.
Night, 7:50. A phone repairman turns attacker in TJ Hooker.
What's this all about? At Linda's apartment, the police told me they brought her here. She was attacked.
She's afraid. Afraid of what he'll do.
I think the killer's still out there. I think he's going to kill again.
I think we'll be back.
Explosive excitement at 8:45. Come on now! Leslie Crowther makes sure everyone has a splendid Saturday night. So don't miss the fun on London Weekend Television, your weekend ITV.
Stay with us as Jill Gascoine stars as Detective Inspector Maggie Forbes in The Gentle Touch.
Hello everyone!
Hello,
I'm Andrew.
I'm Lisa.
And welcome to episode 23
of Round
the Archives. I don't think there's anything much to correct about episode 22,
Yes,
is
I'm
there?
sure somebody will let us know if there is.
Yeah, I've probably forgotten.
Yes.
But in the meantime, we've been busy with videos, haven't we?
Yes.
Those have been doing all right. And
Yes.
the blog is still going. So
It is.
roundthearchives.blogspot.co.uk for the blog and just Lisa Parker for the videos. But if you search for something like Doctor Who on Twitch,
Yes, you'll probably find it.
us because that's what we've been talking about mostly.
Yes.
But anyway, let's get on with episode 23, shall we? So first off, thee and me take a look at Robert's robots, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And then we'll go straight into an article by Martin about Kinvig. So you've got all that to look forward to. And
Aren't
then-
you lucky?
Yes, and we'll be back very shortly.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mr. Somerby, there's a man to see you.
Oh, yes, all right. There we are, Eric. You can take care of that. Thank you, Kitty.
I say, Lisa.
What do you say?
I say, what did the owl say to his girlfriend when it started to rain?
I don't know. What did you say?
He said, too wet to woo. Too wet to woo.
Yeah.
Lisa,
Yes,
we are looking at Robert's robots, and that's one of the jokes from Robert's robots.
we are. That's the level of humour.
But have we got the first series? We've got the whole of the
we've got
first
both
series,
series.
and the whole of the second series.
Yes.
Good Lord,
Yes.
aren't we good?
Yes.
So Lisa, what is Robert's robots?
Robots is a I'm assuming it's a children's comedy, I suppose.
Well, it was
Written by.
Well, it was broadcast at 4:50 in the afternoon.
Yes. Are there other children's programmes before it?
Well, this was episode 1, which is Follow That Robot, is Monday the 12th of November 1973. So the schedule beforehand runs 3:55 Who's Baby, David Nixon with Jimmy Young and Diana Coupland. Interestingly, the Radio Times,
TV Times.
the TV Times says the deviser of this series has Eamon Andrews. I don't know whether they mean they...
Was him, it is.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
whether they have him on a daily basis or not. Anyway, Clapperboard,
Yeah.
Robert's Robots, and then Lollipop, which is the Peggy Mount Hugh Lloyd.
Okay, so this is a
thing.
really weird ITV thing that you've got a mixture of children's programmes and sort of family programmes.
Well, if you look at the listing by the time you get to episode 4, Clapperboard follows on from Joker's Wild, which is on at 3:55. And having Joker's Wild on in that slot is really quite strange to me.
It is, yes.
But anyway, back to Robert's Robots.
Yes, it's devised by Bob Block.
That's right.
Which probably tells you all you need to know, really.
And it runs 1973 and 1974.
Yes.
So it's after Pardon My Genie.
Yes, and before Rent-A-Ghost.
Before Rent-A-Ghost.
And Grandad.
Yes. But if you look it up on Wikipedia, it gets the grand total of 2 sentences of description. Robert's Robots was a British children's television series that ran from 1973 to 1974. Robert Summerby is the inventor of the robots, and he lives with Aunt Millie.
Yes.
And apparently that's all you need to know about the series.
Yeah. Robert is played by John Clive.
Yes.
And it's also got Jenny Hanley in.
Yes, she's not in episode 1.
She's not in episode 1, she's in episode 2 from onwards.
Yeah.
But we looked at episode 1 and episode 4.
Yes. Okay, and we'll get on to
and there is a reason why we looked at episode 4.
In a moment. But yeah, I mean, the setup, he makes these robots.
Yes.
And he's got a
government grant.
He's got a government grant.
So he has to keep it all secret.
Yeah, so this is like from the Ministry of Technology, and they're providing research.
Yeah, funds.
Yes. And he's made Katie.
Katie, yes, who's a sort of basic robot, and he's very Herman Munster-like.
Yeah, he's silver with face.
But I was also thinking of what he's wearing. He's sort of wearing that sort of Universal 30s Frankenstein jacket and
yeah, it's a
sort
slight air of Frankenstein's monster, isn't it?
Yes, well, more of Herman Munster in some ways, because he's quite sort of bumbly and trusting, and
he's sort of he's quite a sort of amiable character.
Yeah, he's quite lovable.
But he's got the strength of 10 men, and he sort of
the brain of a child.
And he keeps pulling the door off the hinges.
He keeps forgetting to open the door. He opens the door the wrong way.
Walking through it. Yeah. And then you've got Eric.
Yes.
Who's a more sophisticated one, isn't he? And he's played by Nigel Pegram, who you might spot in the Tomorrow People a few times. Because this is produced by Vic Hughes.
Yes. Who will go on to do
Tomorrow People. So there is a Tomorrow People link there already. Because it's quite interesting. It is a sort of... It's a Thames series.
Yes.
And you do actually get some decent actors in
you've got Robert Downing in the first episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Dudley Jones.
From
10th Planet pops up. And Richard Davies as well.
Richard Davies. Yes. More about whom in a moment.
Yeah. But it's this whole thing that the robots are actually they've got sort of human feelings as well, haven't they?
Yes.
But Eric could almost pass for a human being.
Yeah, apart from when his ear smokes.
He's got one weird ginger eyebrow.
Yes, and a sort of red bit across his
streak in his hair.
Yeah, it's sort of reverse Peladon, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's got a bit of a sort of twitch, hasn't he? Yeah.
Well, that's because his ear sort of fuses.
Yeah, his ear sort of overloads, doesn't it? But there's this whole subplot that there's this sort of guy from a sort of rival company who's he's employed Richard Davies as a private detective
to spy on him. Now this is a feature you'll find in a lot of Bob Block's work, because in Rent-A-Ghost, in a later series, I think it's sort of the third or fourth, the Perkins, who are the Mika's next door neighbours, employ a private detective to spy on them to try and get proof that they're mad, so they can get them chucked out the house or something. I'm not quite sure. And in that case, it's Tim Stern.
Yeah, all right.
But you get it's lots of creeping around, watching these unusual behaviours that go on in a lot of Bob Block.
But yeah, the sort of guy who's employed Richard Davies. He's got this thing of speaking.
He gets these words
wrong. I mean, it's a bit sort of Ronnie Barker, Society for the Piss Pronunciation of Worms, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's the stereotypical foreigner, isn't it?
Because he says like fair means or chicken, meaning foul and things like that. Richard Davies does a lot of talking into his pocket dictaphone, doesn't he? Basically so he can talk to the audience.
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
But the whole point about this is that they're trying to prove that Eric is so lifelike.
Yeah, but he could be mistaken for a human.
So they have to send him to the doctors to have an examination.
And all sorts of confusion occurs because, first of all, when the man from the ministry Mr. Fosdyke, he goes to the laboratory to talk to Eric, and he comes across Richard Davies, and because Richard Davies has got a lab coat with R on the back,
he assumes he's the
robot. Yeah. So it's fast, really. It's just
mistaken
identities
and things like that, and
which again is a feature of Bob Bloch's work.
Yeah, but Eric's sort of ear is overloaded.
Yes,
but he's got 2 extra sort of sound sensors up his nose.
Yes, so you get a scene where he's going to the doctors and he puts. Actually, they're like little in-ear ones. I didn't realise you had little in-ear ones.
Yeah, because he's listening to the radio.
Yes,
and
he puts it up his nose.
Yeah. And what was it? Richard Davies says he's smelling some music.
Yes,
but there's this whole long silly film sequence where Eric is going to the doctors.
Yeah, and he keeps stopping and doing stuff.
And Richard Davies is following Eric.
Yeah, and Robert Dowling following Richard Davies.
Yeah, thinking that Richard Davies is the robot. Yeah. So it's all terribly silly.
Yeah.
But load of sort of smoke comes out of his ear again.
Yes.
And
then he puts some frozen peas on it.
He goes and gets some frozen peas.
Which then fuses his arm, making it twitch.
The water sort of drips off of them. Yeah. Richard Davies gets hit on the head with an umbrella.
Yes. Supposedly to test what would happen if he hit a rabbit on the head.
Yeah. But he goes to the doctors. Now, the doctor, I sort of stopped it and rewound it because it said, I wanted to look, there was a plaque on the wall about the hours of the doctor, and the doctor's hours are 9 till 11 and 4 till 6. And I said to you, well, what's a load of people doing in his surgery then at 2:55?
Yeah. I think they're probably private patients.
Yeah,
so he has his NHS surgery in the morning and the afternoon. Then he has a private surgery before the NHS surgery.
But there's a bloke waiting to go in who's got a note, and Eric's got a note as well.
And he drops his note.
And the notes get exchanged.
Yeah.
Now the bloke...
They don't get exchanged. He drops his note. Eric drops his note.
Yeah.
And a woman picks up and gives it to the other bloke, who's got his note in his pocket still.
Yeah. But the other bloke is...
Larry Noble.
Who's Pinder from Blake 7 Orbit. Yeah.
And if you've ever seen that, you'll know what an extraordinary performance that is. He doesn't play anywhere near as eccentric.
Yeah, so this bloke goes in and the doctor reads the note and assumes that he's the robot.
Yes. So it's getting complicated.
Yeah.
For a kids' programme, it's actually quite a complicated
plot. You do have to pay attention.
Yeah, it's layer upon layer upon layer, isn't it?
Who believes what. And...
Yes, and who you think is who. And you do have to pay attention.
Now, it does beg the question why the doctor's got a toolkit in his office.
Yes, you do wonder.
And the bloke runs off at this point when he gets the wrench out.
And knocks Richard Davies over.
Yeah. But Eric goes in and he says about his ear.
Yes.
And so the doctor looks through his ear.
Yeah, and there's a shot of him you can see right through.
Yeah, it's a sort of CSO shot. Yes. You can see all the way through Eric.
Which is very well done.
Eric's head. Yeah, it's not bad. Not bad. But... the doctor accidentally presses his emergency speed up switch,
which leads to one of these
speeded up
film chases.
Because Eric runs up the road, overtaking a car.
Yes,
or silly things like that.
But he gets his extra funding because this is what it's all about. He's asked for extra funding from the Ministry of Technology, and because of the mishaps, he gets his extra funding.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, it's a silly setup.
Yes.
But as you said, you can spot the sort of Bob Block-isms.
Yes, you can sort of tick them off as you go. Private detective, tick. Mistaken identity, tick. Yeah.
But then we jumped on to episode 4.
Yes.
Which is called Dial C for Chaos. Now, let's see what it says in the listings for that one. So this is Monday, the 3rd of December. And I just need to. So this point, Jenny Hanley's now in it as a sort of regular, isn't she?
She's Robert's
fiance.
Yeah, but again, girlfriend stroke fiance.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But it says, "Don't put your robot on the stage, Mrs. Worthington," as somebody nearly said. Robert has decided to ignore the advice, but he's not so sure the show must go on when the custard pies start flying, and he's even more doubtful when Markin and Gimbal get in on the act, because they're that's the private detective and the Gimbal's
spy.
the private detective, and Markin's the bloke in charge of sort of the rival company. And Eric sings his own version of the Hit Parade with shattering effect. Now,
see, that's another thing as well that Bob Bloch does. People singing badly and shattering glass.
Because
Mrs. Meeker does
Meeker does it. Yes, that's right.
She shatters all the glass and people's glasses, and So again, you're getting recurring ideas.
Yeah, but there are 4 robot entertainers that have been built. Two of whom are one's played by Christopher Biggins,
looking very young and very slim.
Looking young and slim, and the other is played by a certain Sylvester McCoy.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. And they do they can tell jokes and they can sing
and do magic tricks.
And there's a thing where they can say, pick a card, any card. And because it's Sylvester, it reminded me a bit about when we saw Sylvester do. We've seen him do some of his cabaret stuff.
Panopticon, I think.
Because he does a whole routine with sausages, doesn't he?
Yes.
Pick a sausage, any sausage, put it in the pack. I'll shuffle it.
Yeah.
Is this your sausage? No. And then he starts flinging the sausages
into the audience.
And one whizzed past my ear. I seem to remember. So I nearly got a sausage in the ear. Thanks to
did. Yes.
Sylvester.
Because he also does that, and he does the trick with the elastic, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. He stretches the elastic in his mouth.
Yeah.
And he sort of falls off the stage.
Yeah.
But Eric's sort of starting to get a bit bolshy by this
He's
point.
read some Karl Marx and he wants rights for robots.
Yeah, he's sort of union. He's started thinking about sort of forming a robot union. So it's almost like Robots of Death, the robot revolution will come, isn't it? It hasn't taken long for him to get disgruntled with his lot,
not
has
at
it?
all. Not at all.
But there's this remote control device which has got like letters on it, like C for comedy, and S for singing.
And Katie likes playing with it, so all you get all the time is them. He keeps getting. He'll be talking about something, and then Katie turns it to the singing thing, and he has to start singing.
Yeah. Now there are quite a few custard pies in this episode. It has to be said.
Yes.
But yes, what was it? Yes, Eric sort of ends up singing things like A Handful of Songs and Only a Rose, and things like that. And he keeps on singing these sort of things to Katie.
Yes.
But what is it now? We've not seen the episode, but apparently Katie's in a relationship with the gas cooker.
With the gas cooker, yes.
It sounds really strange.
It does sound a bit strange, yes.
But yeah. And then the phone rings,
and
Katie goes and
gets
the phone by physically bringing the phone,
and cuts it off,
pulling it out.
And then, of course, you get lots of confusion because he's called Katie and Angela. Oh, Angie. She is called Angie.
Right, okay.
She comes round and she hears him talking to Katie, and she thinks he's talking to another woman. And it's farce. It's farce for children.
But it's that daft thing where. Angela is kept in the dark about the robots. And it's one of those things that is really frustrating, especially as a kid. I think
just tell her.
Just tell her.
Yeah.
Because Katie spends a weekend in the cupboard or something.
Yeah.
When she's there, but I said again, it's another Rent-A-Ghostism.
Yes.
That Anthony Jackson doesn't tell
Fred Mumford
doesn't tell his parents he's dead.
But then again, see, I can understand that, because how do you actually tell somebody you're dead but you're here as a ghost? I mean, because there's a lot of stuff with him, but his mum will give him a cooked breakfast and they'll find it in the garden because he chucks it out the window.
But I like the thing about there's a line about Angela's been promoted from girlfriend to fiancé. I like the idea that that's promotion.
That's promotion. Yes. That's a step up from girlfriend.
But yeah, she's on the sofa, and Katie's behind the sofa, and he's
trying to get the remote,
and his hand comes off.
Yes, and she's holding this. She thinks it's Robert's hand, and she's holding the hand. Then he stands up and walks around, and she suddenly realises that. It's not his hand.
But yeah, the entertainment robots have their batteries have run down as well, and then Richard Davies sort of sneaks in, and they've been covered with white sheets at this point. Yeah. So he's confronted by 4 figures, 4 sort of ghostly looking figures, speaking really slowly like that. And he's and obviously he thinks they're ghosts or something, and he gets scared
and runs away.
But another awful joke is I had a dog called Isaiah. Why was he called Isaiah? Because he had one Isaiah than the other. And
They're probably jokes that kids find really funny, though.
my brother was a cashier in the police station. What was a cashier doing in the police station? He counts the coppers.
Yeah.
It's all really very silly, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, it's very light-hearted. It's there's no sort of malice in there. It's you can sort of watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't cringe at it.
No.
It is for kids, and it's not the most sophisticated humour in the world. But that whole sequence at the end, I did laugh at it when Biggins keeps on getting custard pies in the face.
Yeah, because they get stuck, don't
Yeah.
they? They get stuck doing the
And
sort of...
for the first 2 or 3 goes, I was going, well, this isn't funny. But by the time they'd done it about 6 times...
It does get to be funny,
It's the repetition of it.
Yeah.
And I've never seen Sylvester or Biggins ever talk about it.
No,
And
well, they probably don't even remember. No.
But I'd love to show it to Biggins as like... And again, Biggins is a rent-a-ghost.
Regular, yes.
Because he's Adam Painting?
Adam Painting, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what was it you said about the maintenance robot or something? Wasn't it?
Jeremy, yes. Jeremy the maintenance robot. Because there's another episode where there's a maintenance robot and it keeps going wrong and trying to fix things that aren't broken. We haven't watched that one.
But from the description,
it sounds very much like the Rent-A-Ghost because there's a robot that Mr. Claypole invents called Jeremy.
Yeah.
After Jeremy Swan, the producer.
Yeah.
And
it mends things.
And it sticks a label on, this is mended.
Yeah.
And it's not. It doesn't mend things, it just breaks things. But isn't it sort of like the robot it didn't have a jester hat on it or something?
Yeah, it was a sort of squat thing with like multiple arms and it was a bit based on Mr. Claypole.
Mr. Claypole, because Mr. Claypole was a jester when he was alive. Yeah, but because Mr. Claypole was obviously a sprite and he does naughty things.
But it's just interesting to sort of join the dots a bit in the way that writers do have things that they keep going back to.
Because obviously Bob Block does Pardon My Genie as well, and even in that some stuff he does in Pardon My Genie you repeat in Rent-A-Ghost because there's a bit where the main character in Pardon My Genie is trying to pass his driving test.
Oh, right.
So the genie casts a dream, but then he does it too much and the bed goes out, and then you get a scene in Rent-A-Ghost where they're driving a bed. So he does repeat himself, but then I suppose if there's big gaps in between all these series, there's no guarantee that anybody's going to remember anything.
Just a couple of extra things. When we we're recording this a few hours after announcing we were going to do it, and we've got a couple of replies on Twitter, and we've had a few comments, including the title should have an epilepsy warning. We should say about the title music. We should say about the titles, because the title music, well, as we've played it, for something from 1973, it's a very good prediction of what the music was a lot in a lot of 80s computer games. Yeah. Because
it's that classical music that's done electronically, isn't it?
Yeah,
so it sounds awful.
Yeah, it's just interesting. At the time, you wouldn't have picked up on it, but with hindsight, it's a very good prediction.
It is a very good prediction. I do want to know what John Clive's doing in the title sequence, though, because he keeps opening and shutting his mouth. What's he actually doing?
I don't know. The other comment from a certain person was not quite as bad as Pardon My Genie.
No.
Which maybe is faint praise. But
in Pardon My Genie you get Hugh Paddock.
Yeah.
Who is always worth watching.
Yeah.
For the first series anyway.
Yeah. But,
and Roy Barraclough, who is very long suffering.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
But I quite like those. I wouldn't mind seeing a few more. They're perfectly serviceable.
Probably shouldn't binge on too many at one time.
No, just one or two.
Yes.
That's enough, I think. But to fill half an hour.
Yeah.
And fine.
And it's available on DVD from Network,
as most things are. Of course.
So
there we go.
Give it a go. Don't say we didn't warn you, though.
Yeah. Okay. That'll do then, I think.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
In the late 1950s, Nigel Kneale wrote the third of his BBC Quatermass serials, Quatermass and the Pit, which I consider to be a masterpiece of television storytelling and a masterclass in how to build a sense of growing unease and menace from basically nothing whatsoever. The characters he creates across those 6.5 hours are all richly drawn, and each in their own small way add to the jigsaw of telling an astonishingly complicated idea in an entertaining and terrifying way. Nothing is superfluous, nothing is unnecessary. Even though Hammer Films were able to halve the running time it took to tell that story a decade later, somehow the movie version still manages to impress, despite losing those small character pieces. Yet the richness of the original is what makes it impress even today, despite being made almost live on a television budget in an age where cutting-edge special effects might involve a wax effigy being melted by a hairdryer. And I think it's Nigel Kneale's small character sketches and the committed performances that make the dialogue sing. Concentrating upon character is what makes Kneale's television creations work, and in most instances, work they indeed do. More than 20 years after this triumph, after falling out with the BBC and working with Euston Films to allow little Johnny Mills to give the venerable Professor one last hurrah, Nigel Kneale turned his not inconsiderable talent towards creating a sitcom, and the result was Kinvig, which is not Quatermass, certainly, but it is very much something else. Kinvig was directed by Brian Simmons and broadcast over the unusual number of 7 half-hour episodes during the ITV prime time in late 1981, before pretty much vanishing into obscurity. It's about a couple of UFO spotters, or enthusiasts of extraterrestrial craft of unknown origin, as his friend Jim might say, and their discovery, or otherwise, of an actual UFO somewhere in the vicinity of Kinvig's rather run-down old repair shop, and their relationship with the aliens that inhabit it. Or maybe it's all a dream. It's no secret that Nigel Kneale could be something of an old curmudgeon in later years and wasn't one to suffer fools gladly. Some see this series as Kneale kicking out at the world of science fiction and its fans, his revenge upon them, after what would then have been 3 decades of people associating him with sci-fi and horror, when he considered himself to be simply a writer of stories. And as such, it seems that the series is neither generally all that well regarded or fondly remembered. And that's something of a shame, because part 1, despite a few shortcomings that I'll come to, is all rather charming and lovely in its own sweet little way. The programme stars Tony Haygarth, who was one of those character actors who seemed to turn up in just about everything, but I always remembered him for playing Des Kinvig. Whenever he appeared, I'd think, "It's Kinvig!" Although I sometimes suspect that I may have been the only one. He's playing him as a tubby, scruffy little middle-aged man with a slight Liverpudlian accent, which seems fair enough because, on the whole, that's what he was. That, of course, is to underplay what is a very subtle performance of tired lives, lost hopes, and unfulfilled dreams, and the things we do to compensate for our own little failures and disappointments. Kinvig lives above the shop with his wife Netta and their dog Cuddly, their mutual love of which seems to be compensating for some deeper personal lack of something else in their lives. Netta seems to love Des very much, indeed, despite Des being somewhat frustrating. If I know my Kneale, Kinvig is a good old Manx name, and it is no coincidence that it is an anagram of Viking, and the irony of our title character being almost the antithesis of a marauding barbarian adventurer is not lost on me. Pressing play, we ought to take a moment to wallow in the nostalgia of that old LWT logo before it quantels away, or whatever the ITV version was called, into the corner of our screen. The episode itself opens with a fairly shonky, if typical of the time, sci-fi title sequence of a picture of some stars and the actor names Tony Haygarth, Patsy Rowlands, Colin Givons and Prunella G popping up in a relatively understated space-age typeface, all backed by a portentous electronic score that screams that great things are indeed afoot. A moving animated blob lasers out the title Kinvig, and we're off. I don't imagine it's any coincidence that the episode starts with a close-up of Des Kinvig asleep and dreaming of some rubbish-looking rubbery space aliens. Space aliens, incidentally, that bear more than a passing resemblance to those seen in the Wild Hunt sequences in Quatermass and the Pit. Although I can't imagine too many of the ITV audience in 1981 would have made that leap. There are slightly embarrassed chuckles from the audience on the soundtrack, which do kind of draw attention to themselves, not least because the laugh track for this entire episode seems strangely muted. It's as if, despite the warm-up gags and the free sherry, the crowd they got in to watch this were a particularly mirthless bunch. Or maybe, just maybe, it's just not. No, let's be kind. Patsy Rowlands appears playing Netta rather beautifully as a vision of sweet innocence and devotion, despite her own lost hopes, waking our hero with a cup of tea and a slight admonishment telling him he's a naughty boy for having a nap. On the bed, their dog and, it is implied, possible child substitute Cuddly, called that because he once was, possibly has fleas, which does not perturb either of them too much. Des Kinvig's rather oddly childlike relationship with Netta is a highlight of the programme, and they seem happily sweet and tickly as we find out Des has a lot to do preventing him from fixing things at home in his job running Daddy's shop. Another fine example of Nigel Kneale painting in a rich and colourful backstory with the minimum of paint strokes. We cut to a location, the rather beautiful realisation of the rundown shop that they've both just been discussing. Inside, later on that same morning, an elderly Mrs. Snell, played with suitable dignity by Betty Hardy, is in discussion with Des as to why her ancient and presumably much-loved wireless set is still not fixed, which tells us an awful lot about the feckless Des and his lazy ways. While he laments the passing of old technologies and struggles to find the parts, his suggestion that she might take it somewhere else comes with a huge slab of reality biting, as Mrs. Snell replies, "There is only you." A world has passed. Repairmen cannot be found in this brave, thrusting technological age of 1981. Des, we now discover, is also a kind man, and he offers to keep on trying to fix the wireless. After all, he might be able to fix it. You never know. As Mrs. Snell forlornly departs, Prunella G bursts in as a human hurricane of youthful 80s energy and a television ideal of supposed loveliness, demanding the door keys she ordered and giving Des what can only be described as a right good telling off. This is Miss Griffin, who has a mysterious double life, about which we will find out more later. We also begin to suspect that Des is stringing her along, just so he can see more of her, because in the midst of a midlife crisis, and despite the fact that Netta is lovely, it becomes increasingly apparent that Des is smitten. Miss Griffin's life seems to be blighted by men bothering her, which is why her need for new keys is so very urgent, it seems, and, with demands that he ought to hurry, and with a flurry of rather worrying insight about snoopers into her flat, she departs, promising to be back at 5:15. Shortly afterwards, Colin Givons appears playing Des's friend Jim, greeting Des with an incredulous "You're working!" which says it all. Jim is Des's fellow UFO enthusiast, and despite spending his life looking out for strange and mysterious things, totally failed to see the girl Des tells him about. In a cruel piece of observation by Kneale, Jim is far more excited by his stack of copies of the Galactic Newsletter, a UFO newspaper of 1953 vintage, which he has acquired from Neville, especially in reference to the article on the mothership in the June edition. There now follows a scene which is chock full of the kind of Nigel Kneale prescience for which he has become rather well regarded in recent years, as Jim and Des, with occasional interruptions from Netta and Cuddly, with Netta spelling out words in front of the dog so as not to upset it, discuss various matters that nowadays we might think of as fake news. They address the alien landing site known as the Great Pyramid, and more thoughts. The pointy bit line is very good, as well as the observations that a spacecraft would slide down the sides. Colin Givons is totally mesmerising throughout this, with those bright, belief-fuelled eyes giving, as he always does, a lovely performance as they tackle the knotty problems of human hands and the magazine story of Kerensky, Adamski, although Kerensky was a butcher, entities, valves, how they both disagree over versions of the truth, and Jim's particular scorn about official cameras recovering or covering up such things. There's also that Buckingham Palace UFO that everybody knows about, which sounds very Twitter-esque. Jim wants to make contact with a UFO. In fact, he's desperate to see one, any kind. Not for proof, you understand, but just for himself. This brings us to another little moment of Knealean prescience, our modern fascination with the fear of missing out. And with that, off he goes to do that terribly 80s thing of signing on. In the shop, another disappointed customer departs, possibly to join a spin-off called The Disappointed Customers of Kinvig, which we might want to see developed someday. We find Des soldering at, as it turns out, 5:25 that afternoon. Miss Griffin returns to discover, to her utter exasperation, that there are still no keys. Des's excuse that he's got a rush on is funny, and whilst Miss Griffin angrily and without subtlety points out his lies, he finally starts to cut those keys. He's also terribly clumsy around her, as his efforts to actually start making the keys immediately suggest these efforts immediately stop once she leaves. There's a clock screen wipe. Ugh. Back to Des lying in bed. Funny things, those screen wipes. I remember once, back in the dawn of time, I spent a term at the film school trying to create tasteful video graphics and constantly having to stop the engineers from using ghastly wipes instead of fades. I think they were shiny and new back then, and got the technicians terribly excited, whilst those of us trying to be all artistic were less so. Still, what do I know? The 30s Flash Gordon series are full of such exotic ways of leaping from scene to scene, presumably referencing the comics, so maybe, as this is supposed to be sci-fi, it's some sort of postmodern semiotic homage. Back in bed, Des dreams of Miss Griffin, so is all of what follows just a dream? Certainly there's something resembling regeneration effects over Des's slumbers, which might imply strange and mysterious goings-on, but he apparently wakes up to find the dog on the bed, and so he goes out into the darkness of an actual night shoot to walk the dog wearing a rather horrid coat that has seen far better days and is therefore entirely appropriate. This street, with its dilapidation and knackered old fencing, has a very Quatermass film look about it, and the green lights that shine onto the close-up of his face through a hole in the corrugated iron fence only serve to enhance this feeling. Through this hole in the fence he sees, dun dun dun, a Perspex UFO with loads of flashing lights parked on a piece of waste ground, looking for all the world like the low-budget Close Encounters it's supposed to be. With suitable drama, a door in the spaceship opens and, with the sort of smoke and laser effects that would make certain ultimate adventure stage shows possible, a space-suited figure emerges and points aboard, and Des wades through the dry ice and walks up the ramp to, well, the sort of shoddy spaceship set that rather reminded me of the Horns of Nimon. Much of the same bits of it may well have been built from. The set is enhanced by some huge valves which actually show off some rather impressive production design. We then see Miss Griffin, not the real-world shouting machine from the shop, but the dreamy spacewoman version of her, all dressed down in a revealing pulpy space gear, being assisted by 3 proper bonkers-looking old aliens. Miss Griffin now has ridiculously over-the-top conical space hair, and her costume has collars that have a very slight Gallifreyan air. Crikey, Mr. Kneale really didn't like Doctor Who at all, did he? Anyway, she greets Des with a suitably portentous Mr. Kinvig, welcome, which acts as a cliffhanger of a sort, as it's the end of part 1. Not the end of episode 1, dear listener. Be honest, you thought you'd got off lightly, didn't you? But because this is ITV, we have to have an advert break. Listen around the archives, tell your friends, and make them listen around the archives. You know that it makes sense. Part 2 begins with a different, wider view, and we get to see Prunella G in all of her space-costumed magnificence, and we get a far better view of her silver space boots. We might want to pause for a moment here and ponder upon the costuming of women in 1940s and 1950s pulp science fiction and how it's being referenced here in a totally non-gratuitous way, but I begin to suspect that this is just how the audience might expect a woman from outer space might probably dress. Or maybe that's just Des. Satire, eh? Ain't it grand? You do start to think that this must indeed be all a dream, the strange manifestations of Des Kinvig's bizarre fantasies, a belief that is supported by all those sequences of Des asleep. Certainly, when his own words, from his earlier conversation with Jim about Venus being too hot to live on, are echoed back to him by the space aliens as they explain that where they've come from, and when Miss Griffin compliments him upon his exceptional brain, we do start to believe that there's been some kind of reality leap. Or maybe that's what Kneale wants us to think. I'm sure the average viewer back then might have been just wondering what the hell was going on. Or maybe that's what Kneale wants us to think. Anyway, the 3 rubbery aliens supporting Miss Griffin, they may have been called Loon Dat Saki, my notes become a little too scribbly at this point, and their habit of splitting their sentences between the 3 of them gets a little indecipherable in my aging years, ultimately explain that they come from the hollow interior of Mercury, which would be too hot otherwise. Miss Griffin, to baffle us further, is emphatic. This dream-like scenario is definitely not a dream. It was her way of bringing Des to her, because they need help, and Des Kinvig has, hilariously, passed their test. Des is suitably impressed that these space-travelling super beings still use valves, because he's always thought that transistors were a passing phase, which is a nice nod back to the seed planted in his discussion with Mrs. Snell at the start of the episode. Languages, happily, and once again adding to the sense of it being in a dream, Des has brought his soldering iron along with him, and he produces it, sonic screwdriver-like, from his pocket, and proceeds to set about fixing the spaceship despite the fact it's one of those electronic soldering irons with a lathe, which remains not plugged in while he does so. It's funny, what was believable to viewers electronically back then? If it had been cordless, a 1980s viewer would have been screaming, "Where would you put the batteries?" at the screen in a way that a modern viewer, so used to gadgets that are wafer-thin, rechargeable and Wi-Fi enabled, simply wouldn't care about. They'd hacked off the lead. Mind you, if they'd done that, I'm sure the props department would have had their hides. Anyway, whilst all of this repair shop magic is going on, we learn of the aliens' ancestors and their escape from Atlantis and how they went to Mercury, taking a chunk of our ocean with them to form their inland sea, which is quite poetic in a way and achingly evocative of the other forms of science fantasy that I suspect several viewers might prefer to be watching. Anyway, with the ship all fixed in an unlikely manner, a comedy car starting noise restores it to life, and Miss Griffin kisses Des, who asks, not unreasonably under the circumstances I suppose, whether he will ever see Miss Griffin again. She explains that there is much for him to do, and that he has many, well, ultimately only 6 more, dangerous tasks for him to perform. None of which seem to faze our Des, thinking, we suspect, in a not very reconstructed way, with other things other than his brain. Certainly the fact that he wants to keep all this a secret from his wife raises an arch titter from the audience. Nudge, nudge, say no more. But he does seem rather more concerned as to whether he can tell Jim, which is even funnier, apparently. The past is another country, etc., etc. Nevertheless, as the romance theme builds behind them, Des leaves the ship, wading through more smoke and laser effects. Well, they had paid for them, so they might as well use them. And with a red light shining onto his face in a very Quatermass and the Pit movie way, the flying saucer departs, backed by some suitably naff wonder music and dodgy video effects. After which, there's another one of those dodgy video screen wipes, back to Des daydreaming in the shop, presumably sometime the following day. Jim has acquired what he refers to as a scientific calculator several years later than everyone else did to help him to calculate stuff, but Des can't wait to tell him in a very matter-of-fact way about last night and how he found a spaceship. Jim is all rather nonplussed by this. Despite the cross-cutting to close-ups of Cuddly, presumably confirming Des's stories, Jim's face is a picture as Des explains that he went inside and explains to him about the friendly entities he met. Much of this is interspersed with cuts to Netta, presumably to emphasise his guilty little secret, and why he's scared of being overheard. Jim, of course, is crestfallen. "Why couldn't it have been me?" he bellows, jealous as hell. Although when Des explains about the colossal valves, he is far more supportive, as it's just like he always said. In the midst of all this, another disappointed customer, Tick, is told to get out, and as she departs to a location not far away, this elderly woman collides with the earthbound version of Miss Griffin, who then bursts into the shop in a whirlwind of ghastly pink top and waving her broken shoe heel at Des with an angry demand that he should fix it. Otherwise, terrible things will be done to him. Given his new insider knowledge, Jim's face is a picture and a masterclass of subtly brilliant acting for television. Meanwhile, as Miss Griffin, in extreme close-up, leaps to the dubious defence of poor old biddies everywhere, we see Kinvig's point of view as real-world Miss Griffin becomes space Miss Griffin, explaining that they will both have dangerous tasks to do together, and Miss Griffin, to Des's absolute joy, will continue to be Miss Griffin, with the awful temper to mask her true identity. Hurrah! The episode ends with an oddly jubilant end theme, which again sort of smacks of how people might think science fiction music might sound. What this all says about male-female relationships, fidelity, and the fantasies of middle-aged men in the early 1980s is anybody's guess, but despite being surprisingly low-key, the first episode of Kinvig really is a rather lovely half-hour of television, in all honesty, even though nothing very much actually happens, and some of the execution is slightly lousy in a goodies moving to ITV sort of a way. The problem is, I suppose, that, as sitcoms go, it's not actually all that funny. It's a character piece, and, as that, it does stand up rather well. All those lovely bits and pieces that make Kneale's characters resonate are there in abundance. Maybe it's the nature of the characters. They're hopeless dreamers, losers, in some eyes, nutters, eccentrics, and possibly just the sort of people ordinary ITV viewers might go out of their way to avoid, which is, I imagine, why Nigel Kneale's Kinvig has rather been consigned to the dustbin of forgotten television. Has never become another Hitchhiker's Guide, Red Dwarf, or Only Fools and Horses. And, to be honest, I guess that's not really any surprise. And that's rather a shame, I think, because the hopeless dreamers, losers, nutters and eccentrics are actually people that need to be seen and heard more of in popular culture. Well, I hope so anyway.
Thank you very much to Mr. Martin.
Yes, thank you, Martin.
Lovely, lovely.
Yes.
One or two little minor notes. The aliens were Loon, Bat and Saga, according to the end credits.
Okay.
The direction credit is interesting for episode 1 because it says directed by Les Chatfield with Brian Simmons. Later episodes just say produced and directed by Les Chatfield, and his name explodes in various different ways. And I've wasted 5 minutes going through all the ways his name explodes at the end. So I don't know quite what happened to Brian Simmons after episode 1 and why it says with. You don't tend to see credits that say with, but there we go.
No, you did that bit.
But I quite like Kinvig.
Yeah,
I know there's things
fun.
wrong with it, but
yeah.
I don't mind it. No.
I'm always a little disappointed by the ending, though.
Yeah.
But
I can understand that. Anyway, next we're going to talk about Doctor Who on Twitch.
We are,
aren't we?
Which is at the moment.
Yes. As of today of recording, we're into season 13, aren't we?
We are.
So yes, and then Warren joins us to talk about the first episode of The Gentle Touch.
Yes.
And then that'll be pretty much it for this issue.
It will.
So there we go. But we'll come back at the end and tidy up some things and say what you've got to look forward to, maybe.
Yes.
Once we can think of something.
Yes.
Okay. See you soon then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good evening, Lisa.
Is it good evening? Okay, good evening.
Well, it might be. There's a small chance.
Sort of good afternoon, really.
I don't know when people listen to these things, whether they listen to them in the bath.
Okay, perhaps we should just say hello.
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 Right, Doctor Who on Twitch is the sort of talk of the town at the moment.
Talk of the town. It's the talk of the town amongst the people we follow on Twitter.
Yes.
Yes.
But let's sort of talk about it and explain what it is for those who don't know.
Yes. Twitch is it's a streaming service. It's for gaming and things like that. And for the last couple of weeks, starting at the beginning, which is a good place to start, they have been streaming Doctor Who.
Yes.
And it's gone down very well.
Yes, it's basically almost every complete story of the 1963 to 1989 run, bar a few exceptions. Most notably, Dalek stories not written by Terry Nation.
Yes.
But a few other stories have been sort of jumped over here.
Ones with animated episodes.
Yeah. Although the Web of Fear got a complete showing with the Telestat reconstructed episode 3.
Because there was probably only one person to contact about that, rather than dozens and dozens of animators.
But why are we talking about it, and why is it important to talk about this?
Because it shows the power of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Because you might think, is anybody going to watch that? Is anybody going to watch it and talk about it? And amazingly, they do.
Yes.
They love it. I mean, it's been shown 3 times.
Yeah, because it starts in the UK at 7 p.m.
At 7 p.m, 11 a.m. in America.
Yeah.
And then it'll be shown twice more, so everybody gets a chance.
I mean,
to catch it.
Most nights you get about 3 stories, don't you? Yeah.
Depending on the length of the
Depending on how long they are. Yeah. But yeah, we started with Unearthly Child, and what was been shown today? Was it up to Carnival of Monsters?
Yeah, up to Carnival of Monsters. There's
Yeah.
3 Doctors and Carnival of Monsters, but that's a hangover from yesterday because we should say today is Saturday,
Yeah.
the 16th of June. They don't actually show episodes on a Saturday and a Sunday,
Yeah.
but they do show.
Time Monster was on as well, wasn't it? As part of
Time Monster, yes, yes. They do show the episodes, say, 3 times. So they started last night, and it'll go into today.
Yeah, but
then there won't be anything till
the way
Monday.
it works is you get the episodes, but you also get a chat room.
Yes.
In the sort of corner
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
And I've never really spent much time in any chat room. The only
No.
one I've been in is the one for Paul's live Shy Life
Yes.
podcast
His
shows.
podcasts,
And
yeah.
usually it's me, Paul, and maybe 1 or 2 other people.
Yeah.
All
So it
of,
doesn't go very fast.
yeah. But this is there's thousands of people watching.
Yeah, at any time. The last time I signed on to it, there was 3,000 people watching,
Yeah.
which was about 11 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, but it's usually about 6 or more. I
Yeah,
think,
it can be 6 or more. That's normally
So
in the
the
evenings.
comments really scroll past very
quickly.
very quickly.
Yes. Yes.
But in some ways, it's like I've regarded this as another step in the evolution of fandom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you and I have been sort of knocking around fandom for a long time
Yes.
now, and the only way you got to know people's opinions on other stories was through fanzine letter pages, really.
Yeah.
So somebody might review a story in one edition of a fanzine, and 1 or 2 people might write in with a comment, and then a couple of months later, those letters might get printed. But inevitably, with social media and things like
Yes.
Twitter and stuff like that, if an episode gets broadcast
You find out
on the
straight
telly,
away.
you know what people
Yes.
think about it fairly quickly.
Sometimes almost while it's on.
But this is absolutely as it's playing.
it's instant.
Yeah.
Instant.
And it has amused me how much people are willing to sort of indulge the old production values.
I mean, they've struggled with a few of the effects.
Yeah.
And some of the attitudes.
Yeah. But generally, for what I assume is a youngish audience and a new audience, it's obvious there are some people in the chat room that are as ancient as us and sort of
I've
have
seen
seen
it all
everything.
before, yes.
But there's a lot of people for whom all this is new and they're reacting to it.
And it's really nice to see how much they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
They absolutely loved Hartnell's Doctor. They absolutely loved Troughton's Doctor, and they love Pertwee.
Yeah.
They love Pertwee.
And what's amused me is the new catchphrases
Yes.
that have evolved.
They got very excited because what they do before each Doctor, in between episodes, they have questions. Not all of those are right, unfortunately. Somebody's not really done their research. Somebody's got Seeds of Doom and Seeds of Death mixed up. But they whichever Doctor is currently showing, they have a little trailer.
Yeah.
With clips of the stories they'll be showing. Or not showing in the case of Patrick Troughton, because they showed clips from the Ice Warriors and then decided not to show the Ice Warriors. But one of the clips they showed for William Hartnell's Doctor was Ian and Barbara arriving back in London at the end of the chase.
Yeah.
And of course Ian comes out of the Dalek spaceship and says, "We made it, Barbara, London, 1965." And this has caught on. They're still quoting it now.
Yeah, you'd have dozens of people just saying
just
London 1965 and it's
1965.
scrolling up really fast.
Yeah. But at the moment, it's
IKEA,
yes, which is what it's not quite what the Doctor says, but in the Sea Devils when he has to fight with the Master.
Yeah. But yeah, what's also interesting is that we've done the sort of running commentary on it ourselves, haven't we? Most nights by doing videos about the stories, and it's obvious that amazingly these are the most watched things on our YouTube channel as well.
Yes.
I think the Doctor Who not on Twitch one is done by far the best business
because that one was about the episodes they wouldn't be showing.
We've attempted to sort of plug the gaps for people by saying there were books, CDs,
and how you could
DVDs
access them
and things like that.
Yes.
But what's nice is that was it last night? No, Thursday night, wasn't it? Somebody actually sort of said hello to Andrew and Lisa if you're watching this, and I saw it scroll past.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh blimey, are we that Are we that missed?
Yes.
So we did actually sign into the chat room today.
So we will try and interact a little more.
Yeah, I mean, I almost don't want to sort of influence people. That's the thing.
No.
I just want people to enjoy it and get on with it.
I think they are. I think they are. And
which is why I much prefer commenting a day or two later.
Yeah.
That everybody's decided what they like or don't like. I'm not here to say what's good or bad.
It's really nice as well, because each companion that comes along, they like just as much as the last companion. I mean, they absolutely loved Barbara. They loved Vicky. They loved Liz, and they loved Joe. And no doubt in a day or two, about sort of Tuesday or Wednesday, they'll start to really love Sarah.
I mean, sort of season 3 and 4, and indeed 5, were of course a bit of a problem in that people just, if you only show the complete stories, people just come and go with no apparent rhyme or reason. No. So like sort of Dodo joins just like that, and of course even in her existing stuff she just disappears at in the War Machines episode 2, isn't it?
I struggle with Dodo a little bit, possibly because there's not enough material, and also, and this is not a reflection on Jackie Lane, but the production team couldn't decide who she was and what accent she was supposed to do. Well, as I said to you elsewhere, she sort of, the character of Dodo unfortunately falls between the cracks in various production teams, doesn't it? Just as she joins the people that invented her leave, basically, and the next team aren't that interested.
Yeah, I mean that would be inevitable for anyone, that you want to do your own characters. You're not interested in what the previous team did. But yeah, I think it's been a really interesting experiment, and I'm just excited because they're not. The trouble is they don't do them over the weekend, and we're recording this on a Saturday, so we won't get any new stuff now till Monday night.
And we're getting perilously close to the end of John Pertwee's era, and the end of Joe Grant as a companion. And I think they're going to miss Joe because they liked, and they're going to miss Unit because they like to see Sergeant Benton and the Brigadier and Captain Yates and the Master. We're getting very close to the end of Roger Delgado as the Master.
But, I mean, years ago, I'm trying to think who it was, but there was an article in DWB about the way that an audience just gets used to characters and setup. So the longer a character tends to hang around for, the more they become loved.
Yes.
Which is why I think Ian and Barbara were a success right at the start, because they were there for
the first 2 years.
Effectively 2 seasons, and most of those first 2 seasons survive.
They loved Ian. I mean, Ian is a great character. You forget how great he is, and as I think I said on one of the videos, you know, all this nonsense recently about the companion shouldn't be the focus of the show, and hello, Ian and Barbara.
But unfortunately, it does flag up how little complete Troughton there is, actually.
Yes.
I mean, there's more than there used to be.
Yeah.
But
Troughton was done in about 3 days, wasn't he? Yeah.
But again, everybody was so pleased to see him come back for the 3 Doctors.
Hey, Trout, yay!
So yeah, I mean, this has been wonderful to see.
Yes, it gladdens our old fan hearts.
Yes,
to see all these new young people who will hopefully continue.
The youngsters,
continue to watch Doctor Who. Yes.
But we've had a few sort of introductory bits at the start as well for each Doctor, and the one that I really liked was the one with Katie Manning on the sofa being. You know, just being Katie.
Yes.
But it was a lovely little tribute she gave to fandom as well, about how the show itself inspires people to be creative.
Yes.
And I thought that was well worth saying. Because, you know, we sit here and we do all this nonsense, but there are lots of people that just write and draw and make music and do stories and loads of good stuff just comes on the back of you know, stuff that people did, you know, 40, 50 years ago. And what's happening over the next, you know, what's happened over the last few weeks and will happen over the next few weeks, more of that creativity is now going to be inspired by what people have effectively got for free.
Yes.
Because that's what we should say as well, that this is basically a free service, isn't it?
You do get adverts.
It's paid for by the few adverts that you do get, but I would be interested to see if there's going to be a noticeable spike in DVD sales. Possibly, I don't know. I would hope so.
Yeah.
And equally with the Blu-ray of season 12 coming out fairly soon.
Yes.
I think it wouldn't hurt if we promoted that a bit as well. Just to, because although they are using the decent copies, and it is obvious that they are. Having the Blu-ray will still give you a much better copy.
Yes. And you get all the extras as well.
And if the season 12 Blu-ray comes off,
they'll do more.
Hopefully we can get a bit more in that vein.
Yes.
We shall see. But yes, hurrah for Doctor Who on Twitch. I think it's
and all those people that are watching and enjoy it. I hope you continue to enjoy it.
It did sound like a very strange idea when I first heard about it, because I was unsure whether it would work or whether it would just fall flat on its face after 2 days. Yeah. But it really hasn't. It's really worked.
No. And it's really nice to come down in the morning and go, oh, I wonder what episode they're showing.
What was it you said? We go to bed.
Yes.
And then you get up the next morning.
And a lot of the time they're roughly at the same position they were the night before.
Because of the way the schedule works. Yeah. So, not by the time we release this podcast, it'll probably be,
Mid-Tom Baker.
Well into Tom Baker, won't it? Because we won't get this out quite as I record this. But yeah, let's see where this goes then. So, okay. We'll say ciao then.
All right then.
Back with something else soon then.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Warren.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Warren.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello. We have just watched episode 1 of The Gentle Touch.
We have.
Haven't we? Not The Gentle Sex.
Not The Gentle Sex.
From 3, 2, 1.
You wonder where that was going there.
I wondered where that was going.
But The Gentle Touch from the 11th of April
1980.
As part of Spring on ITV.
Yeah.
Yes.
All part of the new season.
Yes. The episode is Killers, written by Brian Finch. So, tell us about this series then, boys and girls, because this one's yours.
It's about a lady policewoman. A lady
policeman.
I was going to say policeman. Yes. It's about Detective Inspector. Oh God, I've forgotten her name.
Maggie Forbes.
Maggie Forbes. Sorry, I was thinking Jill. That's the actress's name.
Yes.
Played by Jill Gascoine.
Oh, the lovely Jill.
Jill Gascoine, who would go on to star in Cat's Eyes, which is so ridiculously over the top. You have to see it to believe it.
Deeply disappointed. And she plays the same character in Cat's Eyes, which really sort of they're two different series.
They are.
Yeah.
And she's just been promoted to Detective Inspector. And her husband is a down-to-earth PC.
Flatfoot.
A plod.
Yeah.
Leslie Schofield. Sans moustache.
And to be honest with you, Leslie Schofield doesn't appear on much telly in the 70s and 80s.
no, he's not really that much.
He's like a bit like Peter Davison, when he appears in everything.
We kick off with the opening music, which you said is quite...
It's a bit wishy-washy.
All right, okay.
Yeah. It's quite 80s because it's got little sort of zizzy bits in it.
Zizzy bits?
Okay. Yeah.
And the title sequence is black and white photos.
They've not quite decided what they want to do at this point.
No, they did release the titles as a single. You weren't quite there. Yes, they released it as a single because it was quite popular.
Gosh.
But let's just go through what we see in the episode. I'll just chuck words at you.
Okay.
Because I just single words as much as possible. Helmet.
Yes, that's Leslie Schofield's helmet. That's so rude. Is hanging on a hook.
In the hole.
Leslie Schofield is hanging his equipment on the hull to keep it free from dust and rust.
But you said you wouldn't do that. You'd keep it in a locker at work.
Yeah, you wouldn't take that home with you. No, you could take your jacket home and get it dry cleaned.
Okay.
You get coupons for that, but you weren't allowed to take things like your helmet home.
But it's shorthand for the audience.
It's just to remind you. Well, we don't know at that point that they're police officers, do it?
No.
It's not, so we have to have that visualisation. So it's a bit like the police car chasing the car through the field, as I was talking to you about earlier. Ian Martyr said that it has its siren going, just to remind the audience that it's a police car in a field in the middle of nowhere.
Fag in bed.
Yeah, yes, a fag.
Sorry, yes, yeah.
He has a smoke.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Schofield's having a smoke in bed, isn't he?
Though you don't actually see him smoke it.
No, it also hangs out the corner of his mouth when he comes downstairs, doesn't it? But you don't actually see him smoke, no.
He's had a bottle of wine.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know.
Bottle of red.
Yeah, which I would have thought he'd have been a beer man myself.
Yeah.
But is that being stereotypical?
Possibly.
Is he the new 80s
He's the
man?
new 80s man. He drinks wine.
But then we see some of the guest stars in the episode. And I put Stephen Yardley.
Yes.
And I put Mrs. Muddle.
Mrs. Muddle.
From Pipkins.
From Pipkins.
Otherwise known as...
Sue Nichols.
Yeah.
Who plays his wife.
Yeah.
He's Mole.
He's what?
Mole.
He's gangster's Mole.
He digs holes in the garden.
Yeah. And then they got a kid as well.
Yeah. And I put fag again.
Yes. There's a lot of smoking. It's the 80s.
It's the 80s, yeah.
Brian Croucher plus backdrop.
Brian Olivier Croucher.
Yes. Not doing too bad a job this time.
He actually could, so, as we were saying during it, some things he can be very wishy-washy as a villain, depending upon the production.
Yeah.
This one, they're letting him be nasty. And he does look as though he would knock 7 mils out.
He does. You wouldn't want to argue with him.
You didn't once, did you,
No,
Lisa?
no. I once met Brian Croucher at a Blake 7 convention, and it was an extraordinarily polite queue.
Okay.
Yes. It was, you get to the end, you say, hello, Mr. Croucher. You'd sign your photo or whatever. Thank you, Mr. Croucher, and off you'd go.
Did he break kneecaps?
No, but he's probably not like that at all. But,
he just gives this. He comes across as a rough diamond.
Yes. And also, I think there is another Brian Croucher story, which is nothing to do with the Gentle Touch, but it's to do with when he was in Shakedown. And I think he was interviewed by somebody, and they asked his daughter a question, and she went, "Well, that was a bloody silly question, wasn't it?"
All I put for his entrance is his eyes got better.
Yes. He's got 2 eyes again.
And 2 arms.
No, he's got a hold all, which is the sort of thing you might win as part of a set on 3, 2, 1, isn't it?
Yeah, it's leatherette.
Leatherette.
Plastic, otherwise. From plastic hold all.
And what's in the hold all?
A sawn-off side-by-side double-barrelled shotgun.
A shooter.
Side by side?
Yeah, you could have an up and over, which are 2 barrels above each other, or side by side.
Oh, look at that. Not a police shirt.
Yeah, Mr. Schofield's not wearing a police issue shirt. He's got no epaulets.
Just a white shirt, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I put tie.
Oh.
Not clip-on.
Clip-on ties would have been brought in 79-80, and he didn't. He had a normal tie.
But he gets a scene now, doesn't he? He gets a scene.
He makes a scene
where he says he's not happy.
He's not happy.
So he gives a sort of speech.
Yes, he's fed up of being called a pig and scum and all, and I can't remember what the other one was. Something about a fascist.
Fascist pig.
Pig, yeah. Which I can sort of understand, because he's got all. He's a PC and he gets all the dirty jobs, the marches, the football games, getting spat at, and not being able to retaliate. Quite rightly so, but
wearing a silly helmet.
Yes.
I put Jake.
Yes.
Jake.
Jake.
He's the DS, and he comes along to pick up Maggie to take her to work.
Played by Paul Moriarty.
Played by Paul Moriarty, who will play at least one more policeman.
Yes.
In A Touch of Frost. I think he's a uniformed.
He's a staff sergeant, isn't he? Yes, he's my second favourite character in this, joint with William Marlowe. My first one is actually Jill Gascoine.
Yes.
I'll come on to that later.
Yeah.
And I put filming.
Yes.
As they go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is it film or is it video?
I think it's video. It's got that slightly
clear,
soft look that video's got. Yeah, it's not got the sort of
not overlit as well either. Yeah.
No. It looks real. It looks, London's
housing
dirty.
estate. London was dirty
Yes.
then, yeah.
It still is in some places, but
Filthy.
yes.
Prescriptions or prescriptions. Pharmacy.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, because
Visit to the pharmacy.
Because Leslie Schofield has agreed to meet his wife for lunch.
As long as she pays.
As long as she pays, because she earns more than he does.
Yes.
And because he's sort of been a bit moody, he goes into the pharmacy to buy some
I'd say
perfume.
midlife moody.
Midlife moody, yeah. He's got to that point where he's sort of thinking, what's it all about?
His tolerance levels are really low.
Yes.
Well, you don't actually know what he's bought at this point.
No.
So you were speculating.
Something for the weekend,
Yes.
perhaps.
Yes.
And I put Jiggy Juggy.
Jiggy Juggy.
Because I couldn't spell Jiggy Juggy.
Oh, indeed, Jiggy Jiggy.
Jiggy Jiggy.
Jiggy Jiggy.
And I asked you, where's this actually meant to be set?
Well, Seven Dials is the police station, and it's set in the area of Soho.
All right. Nylons.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, he puts his stocking on.
Bog standard. Blimmin', I'm going to stick a stocking over my head.
Would you not just wear a balaclava?
You'd wear a balaclava.
Because it covers your face more.
Stockings are sort of a pathé by then.
And it does do the weird thing to your nose and your mouth. It sort of spans it all about,
But
doesn't
Stephen
it?
Yardley looks like that anyway, so...
Action.
Yeah.
Not by Havoc.
Yes, they run into one of the security guards in the van.
Push him into the background,
and make the other one lay on the ground. And then Leslie Schofield appears.
So how does he just come across?
He's just walking past.
Yeah.
He's just literally walking past.
Yeah.
It's just unlucky.
And then you get a freeze frame.
Yes. They shoot him.
They let him have it.
Let him have it with a gun, yes.
And then you get a slow-mo fall.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll see that fall quite a lot.
Yes, it's in the opening title.
Do you see it again next week? Yeah.
Yes.
And forevermore, is it?
For this series, I think, isn't it?
Because the titles here, as you were saying about the still photographs, season 2, you have upbeat music and fast action sequence titles, all taken from series 1, mainly from story 1.
Right, so Leslie gets shot, and that's the first advert break.
Yes.
Yeah.
First little cliffhanger.
Yeah. It thrives on little cliffhangers. It's
To-
really
but
good,
it's to
isn't
get
it?
them to come back after the advert.
Yeah, go make your cup of tea and come
Yeah.
back.
You know, you've got 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Just enough time to boil the kettle.
You've had enough of 10 to 12 minutes to get to identify the characters, feel a little empathy. He's a family man. His wife also works in the police. They've got a young son. So they're the family group.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's been torn apart.
But it's interesting to see how this episode is actually structured. I think it works very well in that, you go into the advert break and you want to come back afterwards. Don't you?
That's the whole point. You need to bring the audience back.
But if you were to take this over to the BBC, it'd just be one continuous thing. And I think a natural break helps this.
Yes.
Because it's very heavy.
It is.
Now I've just written cardigan.
Cardigan, yeah.
Oh,
William Marlowe's got his cardigan
got his
on.
cardi on. He
Got
likes
his
his
cardigan
cardi,
on.
old
At least he
darling.
buttoned it up correctly, unlike Hunter in Canada.
Yes. But, William Marlowe's an interesting character, and they all develop throughout the entire 5 series. William is not mentioned in this first episode, but William Marlowe and his wife Jeannie, who's a doctor, have a disabled child.
Yeah, because there's lots of things about, not cures, but treatments and things,
Yeah.
isn't there?
And that's what makes him sometimes a little short-tempered person. They talk about him and then they say, well, he's not a nasty person, it's just the pressures he has at home. And that's quite interesting how they let that bleed through his character. But it was just, when he talks to criminals, he calls them old love and darling, even the men, and it's quite funny. And his sheepskin coat, isn't it?
Yes.
Charlie,
yes. Otherwise known as Derek Thompson.
Yeah. Why Charlie though?
Because he plays Charlie Fairhead to this day in Casualty.
Yeah.
He's the longest serving
he's been in
Casualty
for about
member.
900
He's-
years,
He's
hasn't he?
been in it since the beginning. You can measure your where you are in Casualty by what colour hair Charlie's got.
Whether he's got hair.
Yeah.
He's got big hair in this.
Yeah.
If he's got his sheepskin coat on, because he wears a sheepskin coat in
Yeah.
Casualty. And who he's married to.
Oh, he goes through a few, doesn't
He does. He's married to Duffy at the moment.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember Duffy when she was doing her driving lesson in the second
When
series.
she used to have a Bristol accent.
Yeah, they all have Bristol accents
Yeah,
and drop
they
them,
stopped
didn't
that,
they?
didn't they?
But with this, he's not married, and he goes through this parade of women, and he is not very good with women in this at all.
Jacket. bad news.
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
William Marlowe puts his jacket on.
to tell bad.
Yeah.
Takes his cardi off to put the jacket on to tell bad news.
You can sort of tell the moment he's put that jacket on what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and the fact he gets her to sit down as well.
Yes.
Yes.
But did you notice he keeps it a normal pace? Come in, Inspector.
Yeah.
Take a seat. So she doesn't know what's coming at that moment. It's not. Come in, Maggie. Take a seat. I've got some bad news for you. Come in, Inspector. Sit down.
Then I just put eyes.
Yeah, there's a close up of her.
Just a close up.
There's
of
a
her
held
eyes.
close up,
And
and
she's
she's
got
telling her.
beautiful colour eyes.
She has
as well.
beautiful glass eyes, but it's all the
Not glass
acting-
eyes.
Glass eyes, yeah. Glassy eyes.
Blue eyes.
Blue eyes.
Yeah.
But it's, as he's telling her, it's what the pupils are doing in the eyes, isn't it? She has such a wonderful way of holding up a close-up shot and showing all the emotion through her eyes.
Yeah. And also, I didn't probably say, but when he takes the phone call about her husband's death, you don't, because it's not everybody's good at phone acting, but he is.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even need to say anything. It's all in his face. You can tell that something bad's happened.
Then you get 3 fictional universes colliding in the next scene.
Yes.
Which to me is Blake Seven, Pipkins stroke Rent-A-Ghost, and Howard's Way.
What a mixture.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the use of the word shooter.
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 Yeah.
Shooter, Gav. And you wasted a copper.
Yes.
Now, question that you had, Lisa. Do all police stations have a picture of the Queen and a bottle of whiskey?
You can answer that question without incriminating yourself.
1980, yeah, all police stations have a picture of the Queen. They're obliged to have a picture of the Queen. We still have pictures of the Queen now. We got one in our canteen.
Does the picture of the Queen get updated as she gets older?
No, it's always the one of her. The ones I've always seen is all of her in the complete regal garb.
The coronation
Yeah,
robes.
that's what I've always seen. Always seen all the police stations I've been in.
Not with her funky sunglasses on like she's been wearing recently.
No, with the G&T in her hand, no, nothing like that, no. And the bottle of scotch.
Yeah.
Right, the bottle of scotch, everybody thinks it's TV fallacy. No, it does exist in that time. CID did have a bottle of scotch in the DI's drawer with the polystyrene cups or mugs. And yeah, they would celebrate when I first started, yes, we arrested somebody particularly nasty in CID. Gave us a little tot of whiskey. But whether that still exists now, I couldn't possibly tell you.
Picture of Jack Warner.
Oh, yeah. Northwood Police Station has a picture of Jack Warner signed and it hangs on the wall and it says to all the staff at Northwood Police Station, which makes me chuckle, yeah, remembering that.
Pride of place.
Pride of place. And
Dixon Dockery.
next to the picture of the Queen in the front office.
Well, it's the King of Police and Her Majesty.
Absolutely, yeah.
Then we get a fade to black, which is fairly rare.
Yeah. In a fast-paced drama.
But you said, how else would you transition to the next scene?
It's a time period thing, isn't it?
Because you get the funeral on the news, narrated by Gordon Honeycomb.
Yeah, who would have been doing the news, didn't you?
And directed by somebody very ambitious for a news reporter.
Yes.
I would say as well, they contradict themselves because they say that in the radio report that you get, because before with the scene when you go out to the flat with the villains, you get a radio report of the death. And it says he was killed instantly. In the television report, it says he dies in hospital.
Yeah.
So they have contradicted themselves. But I would say the radio report is probably the correct one because it does look like he dies instantly.
But it depends what's been released to the press at the time. You do get situations like that, don't you?
Oh yeah, if things are fluid.
But there are shots in the news report that you wouldn't get in a news report.
No, they are clearly staged close-up shots.
Yeah.
And everybody's so neatly
framed,
yeah.
Then I put Vegas. This is shoddy sort of
shoddy, seedy slot machine place.
Yeah,
it's just shoved on a high street, isn't it? And it just says Vegas, and it's down.
It's so
seedy.
Unlike Vegas.
And it's dirty and seedy
grubby,
and
bags of rubbish outside.
And use of the phrase toe rag as well.
Yeah.
So you're ticking off a sort of word cliches.
And one thing I would say is you believe William Marlowe is a hard man.
Yeah.
You believe whatever he says, he will do.
If you were interviewed by him, you'd expect to get a slap.
Yes.
And it turns out perfume it was.
Yes.
What he bought.
Yes.
So map on wall, anonymous map.
This really, really annoys me. You're giggling. It just annoys me. I've yet to go into an office in a police station and find a map centrally placed in the middle of the wall where everybody walks round it. But why have you got maps everywhere? And Juliet Bravo does it for a cutaway, doesn't it? And they're talking to somebody from London on the phone in one of the episodes. So they shove him in front of a tube map. I've never been in a police station where there's a tube map hanging up. Probably it is one, but I've never seen that. And I've seen a divisional map, but the divisional map wouldn't be sat in the DI's office. It would be in the central CID office. In fact, no, that would be their division map with plotting all their crime. It just bugs me. It's just another thing to fill space in the office.
Shiny shirts.
Oh, nylon.
Shiny 80s. Yeah, shirt.
Polyester,
shirt.
nylon
Satin look, but not satin.
Yeah.
I had a shiny shirt.
Stand by the fire, go up in flames.
Yeah. It's
and whatever you do,
obligatory.
Whatever you do, just make sure you got the right soles on your
shoes. Otherwise you're just static. I'm bad for that now, aren't I? I catch you sometimes. Give it a shot. The cat.
Are you from Scaro? Do you run along on the metal floor?
Static electricity. Yeah.
Actual coffee in cups.
Yeah.
There was steam
proper 70s cups as well.
Lovely chunky,
brown with
clay cups.
The sort of circle pattern.
And the thick saucer, isn't it?
Thick saucer. Yeah, cups and saucers. Nobody drinks out cups and saucers these days.
That was the type of cup and saucer that if you dropped on the floor wouldn't break, it would bounce because it was so flipping solid.
Yeah, it was really thick.
Yeah.
Held the heat.
Then a word I wasn't expecting to write down when I started this. Eskimo.
Eskimo. That's her informer or snout who phones her up to say he's got some names.
Market.
Okay. Yes.
Market.
Yes, he's a market stallholder.
Yeah,
market stallholder. Does that make sense? A stallholder in a market.
But we said about the film.
Lovely pears. Come and get your pears here.
He sells furniture, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like they've just
Queen
stuck
Anne's
a van
legs.
in the market and filmed because either they're very good extras or they're actual real people.
And to be fair, it looked bloody cold.
It
did
look
cold. It
cold.
was really early in the morning.
Yes.
So they've just said to somebody, can we board your stall to do an hour's filming? And that's probably what they've done.
Pay them £50 or whatever.
Yeah.
I've put My Love, so that must be a reference to William Marlowe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Armstrong Terrace apparently is was the address he quoted, N6. So we might look that up later to see if such a thing exists.
North 6.
Yeah. Fag down to filter.
Oh, yeah. I bet you're gonna.
Well, this is the getaway driver's mother. Now, the getaway driver is perceived as the weak link.
Yes.
As we will find out shortly.
Yes.
Yes. And they go to see him, and his mother opens the door, shuffles along in her carpet slippers.
She looked either drunk or drugged, didn't she? She was,
with a fag in her mouth, which is down to the filter. Now, I never understand why my mum would, because my mum used to smoke, and she wouldn't smoke it down to the filter. She'd let it burn, and it'd get to the filter, and then you get that horrible smell.
Yeah. That smell of foam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Warrant card.
Oh yes, warrant cards. Warrant cards in those days were a plastic fold-over job, which would have they'd only just started really putting their pictures on them, and it would be like a bus pass, literally a bus pass with a plastic picture of the badge, and then you'd have your picture and your details. Didn't come on to having a badge till later in the 80s, you know. But yeah, the warrant cards were literally just hold it open like bus passes.
Backdrop.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
The 5-year-olds from the local primary school were painting the backdrops, weren't they?
Because it's all studio outside the set. You don't actually get...
It's all studio outside the set. You've just ruined it for me. I thought it was real world.
You don't get... you get outside filming, but you don't get the door to the outside. It's always a studio.
Yeah, I know what
Gentlemen, this building is surrounded by film.
Yes.
Pineapple.
Your obligatories, late 70s, early 80s. What is it even for? Is it to put ice cubes in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Del Boy's got
Like
one.
The
cocktail
highest
bar.
chic of the 70s.
Yes. Well, you got every cocktail bar. And
You
all that.
want? They probably at one point had the old corner bar.
Yeah.
Jag equals villains.
Oh,
Villains
yes.
always drive Jags.
The Mark II,
Unless
Mark
you're
III
Inspector
Jag.
Morse, of course.
Yeah,
But his is red.
it's red and
Red.
doesn't work properly.
No.
But yeah, your obligatory 60s and 70s getaway car, aka in the Sweeney, would be a Jag, wouldn't it?
And I have to say, they're quite thick.
What, the drivers or the Jags?
The drivers,
Yeah.
the villains. Because they go to... I think they've obviously decided that the getaway driver, as we said, is the weak link.
Yeah.
And that he is the one that if anybody's going to give, it's going to be him. So they decide... This is a sort of spoiler, but this is sort of 30-odd years old. So
Yeah.
if you've not seen it...
Nearly 40.
Nearly 40,
Oh,
right. Yeah,
Lord.
go and watch it and then come back and listen to the rest of it. But they decide to kill him. And they do it in their own car.
They do it in their own car, and whenever they say, I'm going to follow somebody, you would know if a car is following you doing 2 miles an hour
Yeah, because you
behind
can hear it. And you can
then,
sort of see it.
What would you do? Not what the guy did. Cross in front of it. Don't you look before you step out? Wouldn't you have recognised your mate's car with your mate driving in it as you go over the bonnet and the windscreen?
Staking out the housing estate.
Yes.
Oh.
Again, this is something that sort of bugs me a bit in police things because they'll follow somebody or they'll sit and watch somebody and you can't tell me nobody ever notices that car. Not in the kind of places they're in.
You've also got to look at the context of what sort of decade it was in. From the 70s into the 80s, so a London housing estate. Not everyone would have had a car then. And Maggie's driving a brand new car. That would stick out on a housing estate.
And it's white as well, isn't it?
That's not to say, by the way, people in house estates didn't have new cars. But yeah, it was something that was there. And with the passing of time, she's clearly there for hours.
Yes.
With a lone female sat in the car. Somebody's sort of going to notice.
Sheepskin coat.
Yeah.
William Marlowe gets his coat on.
Yeah, gets his woolly coat
He's got
on.
loads of clothes on in
He
there.
loves his sheepskin, darling.
Furniture and wallpaper.
Yeah, we were just saying, well, you were saying that the room is it's very much, I mean, obviously it was filmed in 79, but it's a snapshot of the late 70s, early 80s with the furniture, you know.
That giant sideboard with the pull
big
down.
sideboard, pull down with your drinks inside. The flowery wallpaper. I mean, I don't know how many different types of wallpaper my parents went through in the late 70s, early 80s.
All giant flowers on the wallpaper, weren't they?
When we had flowers, we had gold flocking. I mean, I look at photos of my parents' living room and you can sort of tell what part of the 80s you're in by what wallpaper's on the wall.
It was flocking hell, wasn't it?
Yes.
And finally, black and white photo.
Yes.
Oh,
that's just a bit odd because there's a picture of Leslie Schofield as her husband. Now, I don't know about you. I don't have any black and white photos of people, studio photos. It's him looking at the camera. It's obviously
in a
staged.
smoulderingly smoky way.
Sort of, yes. Look at me, girls. But yeah, that's what he's saying in the photo.
Ladies.
Hello, ladies.
Which I cannot imagine him saying at all.
But, you know, people's photos are, as you said, family photos, or you've got a wedding photo, or it's you in the back garden with
not
by the hedge or something.
Yeah, not the
And it's
hello,
slightly wonky.
Yes.
and not the hello photo.
Yeah, it's not. This photo is obviously taken by a proper photographer who can frame it correctly. We're going back to the news footage.
Yeah.
It's correctly framed.
It's too good.
You know, the top of his head's in it. There's no fingers over the lens.
There's no photo bombing in the back by the kids.
Yeah. There's not a sticker on it that says this photo could be better if you did this. You know, if you're under
Yes, because in those days
35,
you'd have taken a photograph and you would have had to have sent the film off.
Yeah.
Now,
and if you're under 35, you have no idea what we're talking about.
You would not know what that photo was going to look like
Till
until
you
it
get
came
it.
back.
Yeah.
That was a perfectly studio shot photo. Anyway, we're not focusing on the negative here. We're just focusing on the fun, aren't we?
On the fun.
Yeah.
But the episode ends, and although they've got one of the villains for the death of the other villain, they don't have anybody for her husband's murder.
No.
And I quite like that because it's like real life. Things don't get tied up neatly at the end of it.
No.
You know, and it goes on into the next episode.
I was going to say, this carries on, doesn't it?
It carries on. The storyline
yeah.
carries on.
Yeah.
So we will do part 2 at
yes,
some
please,
point.
yeah.
But we're only doing part 1 at the moment, and we're going to be doing part 1 of, well, I say part 1, the first episode of Juliet Bravo for the next episode. Yes, it's very dark, Warren. Stop making faces.
Dark. I can turn the lights off. It would still be darker.
But, so we're looking at these two...
It's grim up north, though.
Yes, 2 groundbreaking series, both with female leads.
Yeah. But Warren, you just to ask you again, because you mentioned how much you liked sort of Jill Gascoine.
Yes.
In this, did you want to say a few words about her performance across the series?
Yeah, it only comes across as this is remembering it from original transmission mixed in with what I've watched. I've watched the 5 series again. I loved Jill Gascoine. She had some really interesting idiosyncrasies. Have you seen the whole of series?
No, I've seen the whole of series 1.
Yes. Yeah. Does she? Have you seen what she does with her tea and her coffee?
Yeah, I can't remember. It's quite a long while.
She's got a little sweetex.
Oh yeah, she always clicks a little sweetex. She never has sugar.
She always stirs it with her pen.
With her pen, yeah.
There's little idiosyncrasies like that. But
you said that, I remember.
All the characters have something that evolves within them, and it's quite clear. People like Jake. Jake has a crush on her.
He does,
but he knows the line.
Yeah.
You've got he's got the other inspector that joins him
he's
later.
Horrible.
But towards the end, he's soft and he respects her.
Yeah.
But Jill, all the way through, her performance, she becomes a stronger, independent woman. But she still maintains the person that she was from the first episode right through to the last one in series 5, and that always held me. I always loved. I used to watch this on my black and white Ferguson portable in my room. You're all laughing at me. Yes. I can't. Men don't like this. This lad likes gentle touch. It's quite good, and I do like the gentle touch because I think she's a very beautiful woman.
She is,
and but the talent just comes across so much. So
she's in a Raffles episode, isn't she? She's in the one with Alfred Marks.
Is it? Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah, where she's his floozy.
But as you said, the eyes, they glisten, don't
they?
They
do.
And a disarming way about her as well.
Catherine Shell's in the last episode of the first series, isn't she?
Is that based at the high class brothel? Yes, that's fun, that one, yes. When she goes and visits that, yes. It's, and they offer her a job, yes.
Yeah. But it's so nice that in this early part of the 80s, when women are still not taking the lead so much in television, that you've got 2 series on both of the main channels where the woman is the focus of it, and they're strong women. They're not just there, they're doing good stuff and they're strong characters. And I think, in fact, Jill Gascoine's character probably has it easier because they all respect her from the start. Yeah. Whereas Inspector Jean Darblay, who we will talk about in the next issue, who is the main character in Juliet Bravo, she's not actually called Juliet Bravo, that's her call sign. It takes her a bit of time to get their respect. But she does. And also you get 2 Juliet Bravos because you get I don't know what the other character is called now, but you get Anna Carteret coming in. Kate Longton after in a few series time, and it works just as well. Yeah,
it's interesting how their lives are completely different as well, because Jill now becomes a widow.
Yes,
Jill Gascoine. Sorry, Inspector Forbes becomes a widow. Yes, but she also has a family life. Yeah. Because she has her son. Yes. That storyline progresses as well with her son, how he grows up, how he joins the police and how he leaves the police. And then they have her father living with them as well, which I think he's brilliant in episode 1. Absolutely brilliant. He's a realist. He's the flat line all the way through.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
And we will be talking about Juliet Bravo next time, so tune in again.
Yes. So this thread will continue.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to Mr. Warren for helping.
Thank you, Warren. Yes, it was a very interesting article to record.
Yes, indeed. And Warren will, of course, be back in the future. Well,
Yes,
we know he will.
We will, because we've already recorded something with him for issue 25.
Not 24.
Not 24.
25.
25. We'll be doing something for 24 very soon.
Okay. Just to reiterate, Robert's Robots, Kinvig, and The Gentle Touch are all available from Network DVD.
Mm-hmm.
And The Gentle Touch starts a repeat run on Talking Pictures TV
in July.
So that was good timing.
Yes.
Did we know?
No.
And then they announced it.
They announced it. But yeah, you can get a flavour of what it's like, and if you like it, you can go to Network's website and buy the DVDs. Because you won't have adverts.
But we promised Talking Pictures a plug, and there it is.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So see you again soon with episode 24.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was episode 23 of Round the Archives, starring Lisa Parker, Andrew Trowbridge, Martin Holmes and Warren Cummings.
Thanks also to I.T. Williams.
On the musical side, you heard Dan Tate and Paul Chandler.
The script for The Gentle Touch, Killers, was by Brian Finch.
And the producer was Kim Mills. I say, Lisa.
What do you say?
What did the owl say to his girlfriend when it started to rain?
I don't know.
To wit, to woo. Do that again, because we should have been too wet to woo.